So after Conan's Age of War Chapter 4 mid-season update, there were a lot of questions and concerns floating around. To provide some answers, community manager Andy featured in a new video on the Funcom YouTube channel the other day, aiming to reply to some of the more pertinent questions, provide context and clarify some issues. This video covered a few different topics, including the potential return of old Battle Pass items. So let's look at exactly what was said. Andy began with a brief recap of the Age of War Chapter 4 mid-season update, which included the new Down But Not Out mechanic and the return of the bounty hunting event, and mentioned the hotfix that dropped the other day too, alongside saying a new version of the mod kit will also be available. The first topic pretty much covered what had already been said about changes to Conan's content and scheduling, mentioning the removal of the Battle Pass and changing the release cadence, with mid-season updates where they can. This then moved into a segment covering a few of the most prevalent questions. The first was a very simple one: are previous Battle Pass items going to be available again? Andy's answer was pretty straightforward. The devs do intend to make items from previous Battle Passes available again at some time in the future. They're still working out details on how they're going to approach that, but when they have a solid plan in place, they will be sharing that information. Personally, I think there's probably a few ways they'll take it. The idea of the old Battle Passes being a permanent feature and something that people can purchase and complete at any time and at their own leisure sounds like probably the easiest to me, as long as it's clear they were old Battle Pass content. It would probably keep new players around a bit longer, and it would be more friendly to people that weren't around for those Battle Pass seasons, especially the early chapters that I've seen quite a few people say they missed. Another potential option is putting at least some of the old Battle Pass rewards into the event loot pool for returning and new events in the future. Personally, I would prefer them not to do that, but that's just from the perspective of somebody who's completed every Battle Pass. It's not as exciting for me personally, but it is an option they could opt for. Regardless of which approach they choose, there's no word on if they'll continue to remix old Battle Pass content for the Bazaar. They started doing that in the Age of War Chapter 4, as they said they would, and though I haven't personally been too enthralled by some of them, some of the designs have been fairly interesting, namely the arcane pieces. Swapping their colour palette from black to white was a very interesting move, and I think it made those pieces quite fun to experiment with. All in all though, yes, old Battle Pass items will be coming back in some form or fashion in the future, and the devs will share details on how, when, and where they'll return in the future when they've nailed down the details of how best to reintroduce them. The next question was asking about new events, seeing as this mid-season update saw the return of the bounty hunting event from the Age of Sorcery Chapter 2. Andy said there will indeed be new events in the future and that bounty hunting is only the beginning, and moving forward there will be brand new events alongside, and I quote, new ways to experience content that you thought you might have already been familiar with. No surprises here really. They wanted to build up a library of events old and new to cycle in and out, presumably with the mid-season updates, and I think the return of bounty hunting is sort of a tester for the idea of an old event being revamped with new rewards, and for me so far, I think it's been a decent success. The new loot is quite nice and definitely makes the returning event more enticing. The latter part about new ways to experience familiar content probably refers to new loot and rewards in the returning events if I had to guess, but also possibly new ways to engage with said events. The Sacred Hunt event, for example, had unused assets in the form of at least 2 bosses I believe that were just not in that iteration of the hunt, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if when the Sacred Hunt returns in the future, those bosses are made available in some fashion, and I think that's probably a good way to try and keep returning events relatively fresh. The next question was pretty straightforward. Is Dune Awakening affecting the development of Conan Exiles? This is a very important question, so I'll let Andy say it verbatim.
Now, some of you have also been wondering how Dune Awakening might be affecting Conan Exiles development. Well, Dune Awakening and Conan Exiles have completely separate dev teams that are fully dedicated to their respective projects, and there's no plans to downscale one in favor of the other or anything like that. In fact, we just hired more people for the Conan Exiles team. So we're not going anywhere. Again, we're doing this to give ourselves more time between major releases to make sure that they're up to the level of polish and quality that we all want.
Pretty succinct and comprehensive answer, to be fair. This was basically already confirmed through some social media replies previously, but it's good to have a member of the development team in front of the camera and saying it straight down the lens. I think it's a bit more meaningful that way. The final noteworthy piece of information was in regards to the next stage, and Andy stated we can expect the first details of that next stage coming in August. So based on that, we are probably looking at, if I had to guess, a September release, depending on if the details take the usual format of a dev stream between 2 and 4 weeks on the beta client, and then the release after that. The devs did say they do a Q&A of some of the more pressing concerns after this most recent update. I'd say this video has tackled some of the more important ones, specifically around what's being done with previous Battle Pass items, and also of course the relationship between Dune and Conan. There was a lot of tinfoil hat rumours going on with that, to be frank, alongside some very valid questions of course, but it's good to have that covered by a member of the team in this fashion. There are more questions to be had, specifically about issues related to the falling through foundations bug, inventory issues, event rotations, future content, the bazaar, etc. So I'm hopeful this isn't the last Q&A. I know the dev team are probably coming towards some form of summer holidays, as most dev teams on most games probably will be, but with Andy answering some of the more pressing questions here, I would like to see someone take the time to answer some of the other important things that people really want to know about. Even if it's just in the form of a blog post, communication is almost always valuable at the end of the day. So to summarise, the dev team seems quite hopeful that the changes to update cadence can give them the chance to make a better product overall for Conan Exiles. Previous Battle Pass items will return to the game in some form or fashion, though no word on the execution just yet. New events will be coming in the future, alongside refreshes to returning events and new ways to experience content. Conan and Dune Awakening have, to quote Andy, completely separate dev teams with no plan to downscale one for the other, and finally we'll get details on the next stage of this coming August, so not long to wait really, it is already July, somehow. There were definitely some unanswered questions, but I gotta be honest, I do prefer this format of a community manager talking directly to the camera, as opposed to a QA done in a blog post. For me, it feels a bit more sincere, and just reading text always kinda loses context of how things are said. Anyway, I think that about wraps us up for today. A few questions answered by the devs on how they'll be handling things in the future, what to expect, and when we'll be hearing more. If you enjoyed this video, do leave a like, lets the algorithm know that you found this useful, and if you want to see the next videos earlier than anyone else on YouTube, check out the Patreon linked in the description or the pinned comment and support the channel directly. You can also join as a free member to see weekly previews of what videos I'm producing next. Thank you for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful, esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. Make sure you subscribe for more Conan news, reviews, guides, builds, lore videos and more. Take care, and I'll see you soon.